CRM was supposed to improve customer relationships. Instead, it's shorthand for can't resolve much. Which means you may have sunk a fortune into software that just bounces customer issues around but never actually solves them. On the ServiceNow AI platform, CRM stands for something better. With AI built into one platform, customers aren't mired in endless loops of automated indifference. They get what they need, when they need it. Bad CRM was then. This is ServiceNow.
People do some crazy things. Some people free climb buildings. Others jump into a stock car and they ride around in circles at 150 miles per hour. And some people, well, they like to read obituaries. 2,000 obituaries. So check this out. Your startup is 28 days old and it shutters. You work a corporate gig, take a stab at a few more startups, move halfway around the world to do it, and in the end, you find yourself waking up each morning to a plate of scrambled eggs and a question. Who died? What's going on, people? Ryan Leary here from Work Defined. You're listening to Inside the C-Suite, where we talk with executives and founders to learn the story behind their success and failures. In today's episode, we talk with Lux Narayan about his journey, his failures, and yes, his infamous TEDx on what I learned from 2,000 obituaries right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Inside the C-Suite. My name is Ryan Leary, and we are with William Tincup and Lux. I'm going to butcher your last name. Narayan?
Close.
Narayan. Narayan. Well,
Narayan.
That would
I'm going
make
to give an
sense.
extra point to William, but yeah, close.
That would make sense. All right. So, Lux Narayan, welcome. How are you today?
All good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Good. Well, welcome into the show. Why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself and share a little bit about who you are?
Cool. So, Lux Narayan, most of my waking life is taken up by a company that I co-founded, a company called Stream Alive. And we help make live sessions a lot more alive. And that being a startup and, early days, you could call me a sucker for punishment. So I've done startups before and can't seem to tire of it. So obviously Stream Alive takes a lot of my time these days.
What type of events are we talking about? Are we talking about the Facebook Live and LinkedIn Live and things like that type of events, or other types of live events?
So short answer, yes, those kind of events and other kinds of events as well. So live events that are online, which could be the way we like to describe it as live streams and slide streams. So whether you're doing it on Zoom or you're doing it on YouTube or Twitch or on Microsoft Teams or Facebook Live or LinkedIn Live, you are kind of streaming to an audience, so to speak. And it also works with in-person audiences. And maybe we were optimistic. We were very optimistic about things, but when we started the company during the pandemic, we expected a world which would go back to being in person and a world that's hybrid. So it's actually engineered for hybrid situations as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, all right, before we get into your story and we talk about your background and how you got to where you are today, a little bit of research got me to a page called LinkedIn where you had a TED Talk.
What?
Right? That's you. I got the right Lux, right? You were the one giving this TED Talk?
Which one? Yes, I am. I'm just kidding. Yes.
That's genius.
For a second, if I look flush, for those that are watching.
That is so awesome.
I couldn't resist one. Sorry.
I just got a hot flash here. Like,
dude,
I'm only
so
45.
Great.
Come on.
So
the TED Talk's called What I Learned from 2,000 Obituaries. I had to kick it off with this because somebody that we both know wrote their own obituary. And he's
using
next to you on the
ChatGPT
screen on my side, using ChatGPT.
So I wrote one back in 2013 as a blog article, just because I wanted to kind of go through.
It blows my mind.
The exercise of this was like for candidates Like, instead of writing a job ad, get people to, and in the interview process, get them to write their obituary. Just right in front of you. And then that way you understand what they're thinking their goals are in a reflective way. So I did that as a blog post. And then when ChatGPT, the commercial ChatGPT was available, I went into it. I'm like, in 1,000 words or less, write William Tincup's obituary. And it's just, and it's with great sadness that we, like it's written like that. And I'm like, it's like 2:00 in the morning. And I go in, I wake up my wife. I'm like, hey, check this, check it out. All right. When I die, all you got to do is go to ChatGPT and type this, and then it'll crank out. You got to tweak it just a little bit, but it's like 99% on. It's usually
fact check and we're good.
That's dark.
Yeah,
that's really dark.
I'm trying to figure which one is darker, though. I mean, is it the one you just described, or you going to a candidate and saying, "Hey, I'm in the recruitment space. Please write your own obituary"? That's equally dark, if you ask me.
It is pretty dark. Well, the recruiting one makes probably more sense in the sense of you're trying to get a feel for them aspirationally. Like, where do you think? Where do you see yourself? What, like, are you serving on boards? Are you funding nonprofits? Do you care about this? Like, you can kind of see a lot about a candidate in a very short amount of time to be able to see how they see themselves. 10 years. Right. Yeah.
Right. Write your obituary. Describe yourself. So,
yeah.
tell us about the TED Talk.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So,
what did you learn?
Did you read 2,000 obituaries? That's what I want to know.
I probably read a fair number of them. In fact, I still do. So call it morbid, but I still thoroughly enjoy reading the obituaries. And William, it looks like you enjoy that as well. But
brothers from another mother.
I'm telling you,
we're even wearing T-shirts to match. I mean, you got an Atari T-shirt.
You're both wearing.
I got a Space Invaders T-shirt, and I swear we did not color coordinate.
we called each other last night just so we could.
Jesus. I think I'm just gonna leave the show. I'm done.
No, the talk was a lot of fun. It came in a very interesting way. So I still remember how it started. I was actually giving a talk at a Twitter event, and this was about data, because at that point I was running a different company called Unmetric in the data intelligence space, in the social media benchmarking space. And obviously Twitter was big in our world. So I'd managed to wriggle my way into giving a talk over there. And about 3 days before I went on stage, they said there's one condition. You can't mention your company name. You can't plug anything about what you guys do. And you got to make it interesting and humorous. Right?
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
So I said, yeah, thanks for the lead time and stuff. So so I actually, don't ask me how. I don't remember exactly how, but actually managed to bring in a fair amount of snarkiness and humor and stuff into data science. And this is kind of how journeys meander in directions you never envisaged, right? There was this guy in the audience who was a curator for TED India. This was an event that was happening in India at that time. I was there then. And he said, I love how you make a narrative around data and can make data funny. So we're looking for folks who can tell stories around data at TED over here. That was a TedX event. And he invited me for that and said, can you do a story around data, right? So I pitched about 5 different stories that I thought would be interesting around data, and all 5 were summarily dismissed.
We like that, but...
we like that, but... So I think in a couple of instances, they didn't even bother saying we like that. So they just said no straight, right? And I realized the reason, and they were absolutely right, because I was trying to anchor it in what I was doing for a living and what we were doing in work, and saying we need to magically create a story around that. But his brief was very simple. He said, a 12-year-old in the audience needs to be able to understand and relate to this. And I don't think 12 years olds are going to relate to brands as personalities or the changing face of communication or anything of those things. Right? And sometimes your mind only works when you have a deadline. So I think I had about 2 days before which I needed to tell him what we wanted to do. And I was having a coffee in the morning, and I actually have a pile upstairs in my house, even now, of obituaries that I keep taking out of the newspapers, keeping it for, I need to read this in more thorough. So it's about 2 feet high, right, that whole pile. And I was reading off that pile and I said, gosh, I actually read these things and it's data, right? And in my head, I'm connecting dots between different stories that are coming out about these fascinating people and the lives they led. So I requested a couple of my colleagues to actually do a side project in terms of, can we ingest data on a whole bunch of obituaries, analyze the headlines, and is there something interesting there? Right. So we did some initial stuff, and it was quite fascinating. And pretty soon we were down this whole rabbit hole of data on obituaries. And that's the idea I pitched to the TED folks there. Did the talk at TED Bombay. And again, this is crazy coincidence. The global curator for TED was in the audience in India at that time. She heard this and said,
wow,
a lot of your stories are based on obituaries from the New York Times. You should do it in the TED global stage. And said, absolutely. I'm back in New York later this month. And then a couple of months later, we actually had that on the TED stage here in New York. And the talk was on lessons learned from 2000 obituaries.
It's amazing.
I think there's a lot to learn from them.
Oh, 100%. Well,
that's a whole different, whole nother conversation. What have you learned? We'll actually have to listen to your video. I guess that would watch the video. That would make sense.
Well, this is the struggle, though, Ryan, with a lot of practitioners. Like they already have both in HR and in recruiting. They sit on a ton of data, so it's not like they lack data, payroll data alone, but they sit on a ton of data. It's the storytelling aspects. It's being able to see in the data, and I think this is where AI, maybe even generative AI, will help them tell the story, or at least bubble up, here's something interesting that you should look at, and then maybe some storylines around it, because I think that's the struggle, not just for HR and recruiting, but I think that's a struggle for most people, is to actually make a story out of data.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, all these data blobs and weaving a narrative around it is a part a lot of people struggle with, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
So what did you said Bombay, and of course it's Mumbai for those in the know and those that have been there. So what was your first job? Oh gosh,
okay.
Yeah.
Take me all the way back.
Newspaper route? It's got to be something in restaurant, it's retail, newspaper route, mowing grass. What did you do?
So I'd love to say that it was one of those things. Unfortunately, it wasn't, because you probably know this about kids who grow up in India and stuff. It's like, okay, if you got extra time to mow the lawn, or extra time to do newspapers, use that extra time to study, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So if you divulge the fact that you had extra time, it would be plowed right back into academics and stuff. Okay? So you wouldn't divulge that you had extra time. So no, I didn't have any of those things. Right?
Fair enough. Fair.
My first job was right out of college, and it was a very accidental job, because we had the standard thing of, and you have this now as well, companies coming to recruit on campuses and stuff. So the place I studied, it's a business school in India, in Calcutta, which we now know as Kolkata. And so at the Indian Institute of Management in Calcutta, after I graduated, the norm was for us to go for one of these interviews, get a job over there. Me and two other friends decided not to, because we wanted to, for various reasons, get into the event marketing and management space. Right? It was exploding in India at that point, and we saw an opportunity in the southern part of India. So we held a competition within campus, a naming competition, and our friends named our company Rope Trick. And we started Rope Trick, which is probably the shortest-lived company in the history of Indian companies. Company lasted exactly 28 days. Okay, and the reason for that was good and bad reasons, right? So the bad thing is that, I mean, the company closed down. We didn't really continue the company, but the reason we did that was because we made our first pitch for business to a company called the Amitabh Bachchan Corporation Limited, right? ABCL. For those listening who are not familiar with Amitabh Bachchan, take one measure of Clint Eastwood, add 2 measures of George Clooney, and add 1 Brad Pitt, and double the fan following, and that's probably the kind of fan following Amitabh Bachchan has, which has to do with India's population as well. But he is the number 1 star in India, right? He's a big star in Japan and Russia as well. I have no clue why, but he is. So Amitabh Bachchan, the biggest star in India, had started a company to corporatize the film industry, and we pitched his company, and they were looking for people, and they said, okay, here are 3 people with a business degree who probably know what they're doing but don't seem to know what they're doing, and let's try and get them in here. And they offered us jobs we could not refuse. With our GPAs, those were positions and salaries we would never have gotten on campus. So all 3 of us ended up taking jobs. So that's the reason the company didn't continue. We ended up joining the Amitabh Bachchan Corporation.
How long did you stay there?
Exactly 365 days.
Because you're an entrepreneur at heart, so working inside of a company, while stable-ish, you had to scratch an itch.
That's exactly what happened. I mean, I kind of felt I had betrayed my own calling in some ways. Continued to see new opportunities around. And at a certain point, it's like, gosh, I need to seize this, right? And so I left to start something which, the first of which miserably flopped. But I left to scratch my itch again, yes.
Was there a problem that you wanted to solve that just made you have to leave? Or were you just like, I need to be on my own, and you're just grabbing at straws and trying to figure something out?
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Hey everybody, I'm Lori Rudiman. What are you doing? Working? Nah, you're listening to a podcast about work, and that barely counts. So while you're at it, check out my show, Punk Rock HR, now on the Work Defined Network. We chat with smart people about work, power, politics, and money. Are we succeeding? Are we fixing work? Probably not. Work still sucks, but tune in for some fun, a little nonsense, and a fresh take on how to fix work once and for all.
It actually was a problem that I thought could be solved, right? And this was, gosh, here's where I kind of date myself. This was in the late 90s. And at that point, the internet had just happened and people. So what was happening was at the company, Amitabh Bachchan Corporation Limited, which is probably going to take about a minute each time I say it. So it's abbreviated to ABCL, right? So at ABCL, we used to get a whole bunch of collateral for, events and stuff. So when I needed T-shirts made, or I needed a cap made, or a banner made, it was a pretty painful task trying to find suppliers who were previously vetted and reviewed, who I could go to and get things done at a reasonable price and for a good quality within a reasonable time. And then there were all these events that were happening in the city, in Bombay, as we called it then, telling people that here are suppliers that sell things to marketers. So I just found that there were companies and brands and agencies who needed a constant supply of things, whether that's services or physical things made, and did not know how to find them. So the idea was, what if we bridge this gap and charged listing fees to all these vendors and created a kind of directory of sorts, which at that time would live in a floppy disk and would soon go online in this new era of the internet and would get visibility among brands. So these guys would get a fair amount of visibility. So next time a brand was, let's say someone at P&G, Procter & Gamble, was searching for a T-shirt for their next detergent event, they just type it in there and they find a whole bunch of people who pop up right there. So sounds like a very primitive idea in today's day and age, but at that time it totally made sense.
It was big stuff.
It made sense in my head, at least.
Yeah. What was after that play? So first of all, how did that play? I say end, but what was the result of that particular entrepreneurial venture?
Looking back, I think it had legs, but at the time I did it. It didn't, for probably reasons totally based on execution. So stupidity in retrospect, but I had
it could be a little bit of too early, right?
It could have been a little too early, but it's also a fair bit of stupidity because I had a certain budget and I used half that budget to put a half-page ad in the local newspaper, thinking I'm going to have everybody beating a path to my office's front door and calling the phones. I got a lot of phone calls, but most of it was people trying to sell me stuff saying if this guy could afford to put a half-page ad in the newspaper, he probably has money to spend on our thing, right? but
lessons learned.
Lessons learned. And
what was after that play?
After that, I did something in direct marketing, which was basically collaborative mailers among. So liquor, alcohol advertising is heavily controlled in India, even today. So if you're trying to advertise, let's say a bottle of, you don't have bourbons being made locally there, but let's say a bottle of whiskey in India, you're not allowed to put an ad saying this is whiskey. So fun fact, what companies would do is they would create a surrogate product like playing cards or coffee mugs with uncannily the same name as the whiskey brand. And they would have a big picture of a bottle and the whiskey bottle and a little picture of the playing cards on the side, and say we're advertising the playing cards or the drinking water or the coffee cup, right? So long story short, there were all these brands that had budgets but not enough avenues to spend. And I did a collaborative mailer for a whole bunch of liquor companies to reach the media and entertainment companies that I was a part of in my previous job, because I knew that there was a easy way to get a whole database of all their addresses. So I got about half a dozen liquor companies, created a mailer of 16 pages, brochure with all beautiful photo shots, and mailed it across to all of these 2,000 entertainment and media companies, and got them visibility that they didn't have previously. So that worked out pretty well.
Wow, that's cool.
This is pretty interesting already.
Oh yeah,
we're just going. So let me ask you this: from your first, we'll call it a corporate job, after your first 28 days, have you ever held another corporate job?
One other one. So after I did that one for 365 days, I did the stuff on my own, which was the directory that didn't work or the direct marketing that worked for about 2 years.
Right.
And then after that, when my wife and I were expecting our first kid, something in my head said, I need to be a little more responsible in life. I need more predictability in terms of a paycheck and stuff, because stuff is getting serious now. Right? And that's when I started looking for kids. So I just said that's the adult thing to do, so to speak. And so that was the time I looked out for a job, and I held one for the next 7 years in advertising. For various reasons, I moved to Dubai and worked in for an agency, an American agency's Middle East office in advertising for the next 7 years or so. So that was my last corporate job, yeah.
So advertising, I owned an ad agency for a decade. So advertising, to those that are listening, watching, etc., is soul sucking. It is absolutely soul, like literally there's a straw and you're just getting your soul, your ethics and morality just sucked right out of you. And that's true of every ad. Like when people watch Mad Men, they think, oh, that's cute. That's the 60s. No, that is actually happening right now. Much of the exact same things are still go on today. And I was lucky enough to get out. Thank goodness for just a great business partner. And I got out because I could feel myself. I could feel myself losing myself. And again, I already had trouble with a moral and ethical compass anyhow, and that was the wrong environment for that. So I don't know if you had a different experience with the advertising world.
Gosh, I mean, besides twinning on T-shirts, I think we can trip on a whole bunch of things. So I can totally relate, William. I mean, totally. I mean, I told you I was there for 7 years, right? And I kept meandering to different parts, thinking, okay, this might be more interesting. There were interesting 100%. Conversations, there were interesting work, but largely what you just said was absolutely true. So much so that in my last couple of years in advertising, I just said I need to do something else to keep myself happy and stuff. So I got into teaching. and I used to teach at a couple of universities, and I just found that the high of going and hanging out with a bunch of kids in the end of the day and teaching them and doing that sometimes in the weekends and stuff was just good for my soul, right? And I thoroughly enjoyed that. And said, okay, sorry, go on, Ryan.
No, finish your thought.
Now, saying, and that was a time when I thought maybe academics is my calling. And then a very dear friend from college corrected me and put me on a totally different path, which was actually my first entrepreneurial gig, serious entrepreneurial gig, so to speak. But we'll come to that. You were asking, Ryan.
Yeah, I was saying, as you're talking, I'm listening and I'm thinking, you've had such a diverse career, right? You've done so many different things, but you've had, up until this point in the story, you haven't had a tremendous success, right?
Oh, no, not at all. No.
You've fallen. So a lot of people that are going to listen to this specific show and probably this episode are in this spot now where they've gone through 2 or 3 journeys. They may be in another journey and they've fallen. They haven't quite hit it yet. How do you navigate that? How did you stay positive? How did you keep moving forward?
I think there needs to be an intrinsic joy and happiness in that act of creation, right? Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. If you're going to say, I'm starting this because I hope this is going to exit in a few years and make sure I don't have to work ever again, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
100%.
When you do it with a sense of wonder and creation and I want to build this thing into existence and make it happen and see where it takes us, sounds cliched, but the journey itself is a kind of reward, right? And I think your ego needs to take a huge backseat as well, because there were times I'd be dishonest if I didn't share this, but there were times when, especially in those early days, you compare yourself with friends who graduated along with you from college and who are making an order of magnitude more than you are, driving a fancy car. And it's nice to say these things don't bother me, but at some level, sometimes they do, right?
Right.
So unless you're doing it for the right reasons, in terms of actually enjoying it, it's very difficult, because there are ups and downs, and fun but unpleasant. I mean, unpleasant fact is that the downs are often more than the ups in a lot of cases, right? So you do need to stay very, very self-motivated. I don't know how much of that is you being wired in a certain way or training yourself to get wired in a certain way. But I mean, each of those things, when I talk about it now, and you folks are making me remember stuff I haven't spoken about in ages, but it brings a smile when I remember that, those phones ringing that day with me thinking it's going to be a customer and picking it up and someone saying, hey, do you need false ceiling panels for your new office and stuff? Because
you need a Xerox machine? What?
You need a Xerox machine? I actually had someone call me for a Xerox machine, by the way.
Of course.
Right? Was it you or?
No, but that's exactly. I've had that bit happen to me.
Those salespeople were pretty damn good, though.
Oh, they were. The salespeople on point. I got to a point, I think, with one of my first companies, where I would start the conversation with, "Who's selling who here?"
Yep.
Like, am I selling you? Cool. Are you selling me? Cool. Great. I just want to know my role. What's my? Because if my role is to sell, fantastic. If my role is to listen and you pitch, okay, I'm cool with that too. But Ryan, I think the way that I've thought about successes and failures more recently than not is there's no such thing as success or fail. It's just learns. Mm-hmm. So the learning that comes from those things, that might be the root. That might help me how other people position it. But I think health-wise and mental health-wise, you don't really get wrapped around the axle around a failure or a success. You allow yourself the freedom to then just say, I'm just learning.
Right.
That was a great learn. You ran into a wall. Well, some would call that a failure, but you know what? That's just a good learn. So I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking about it differently, and also I just think that those terms are loaded. because success to one person is not success to another. Failure to one is not the same. But you know what? Everyone can kind of frame up learning. So anyhow.
I think that's a very succinct way of putting it. I'm going to borrow that expression. There isn't success or failure. I mean, it's only learns. That's absolutely true. So true.
Right. Well, there you go. So current company. I want to get back to that real quick. The folks that thrive around you. So you've got a kind of a personality, and you've got values and ethics and morality and all that other stuff. What are the types of people that thrive around you?
Wow, okay. That's tough.
Well, I'll give you for example. Mm-hmm. So for myself, I need people that are passionate. They're ambitious to a degree. They're smart, or at least curious enough to be smart. I need people that are more tactical than I'll ever be. So, because I've found just through life, I've found that, and this is going to sound harsh, but you can only do so much with dumb people. Like there's a ceiling, right, and you can label. So, and I don't fare well there. So, like I if I try to dumb something down for somebody, that's where I fell. So, I need passion. I don't care even what passion is. Like people are passionate about postcards. Great. Yep. I can't teach passion. I can teach you all the other stuff, but I need passion. I like people that are wanting more, that ambition. That might not be the right word, but just people that they want more. And they push you to give them more. I love that. And I also like kind of contrarians. People that will hear me and go, yeah, I don't think that. I think it's like, okay, yeah, actually, that's a better idea. So those are the types of people that, at least historically, have thrived around me.
Makes sense, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we've had a couple of rubrics that way in terms of how we build a team, right? And it's always been many dimensions to it, but the two broad buckets we've been looking at things are attitude and aptitude, right? And any day, I would say the attitude part is going to have a much higher weightage thing than the aptitude part, because as long as you filter for basic intellect,
right,
and stuff, people can be taught skills.
100%.
Right. So the person who led marketing in our previous company and our current company is actually an aviation engineer who trained to become a marketer. Right. In our previous company, one of our best client servicing people was someone in law who she decided to get into software as a service companies. So I think as long as you filter for basic aptitude being there, people can learn skills. But the attitude part comes as something that comes from life experiences, comes with a fair amount of baggage, and is relatively difficult to A, spot, and B, change. Right. So that's a part that's not so malleable, and therefore, that's a part we spend a lot more attention to, especially since this company is fully distributed, but even the previous company was fairly distributed. We had well before the pandemic, we had a rule of work from anywhere.
Right.
Just saying wherever gives you most happiness, because that's going to make you most productive. We don't really care as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do. Right.
Smart.
We encourage a culture of people not wearing masks in terms of differentiating between their personal lives and their work lives. So right now we're still a small team over here in the current company. The last one we exited, we are about 75 people. The current one, we are about 15 people. But we currently have, when you do all hands, for example, and we're catching up with the team, we started off with what happened in your personal life, right? And then get into what you did at work, what you're doing at work the next week. And the underlying message being, we are people first with lives to lead, and yes, we'd all like to know that you're committed to the cause of the company and stuff, but it is still, I think it's important for leaders as well as everyone on the team to know and acknowledge that life comes first, right? Yeah. And that also encourages people to kind of not have to change their personality once they get into the workspace, right? I think it's beautiful when people bring their authentic self that way, can say what they want, because those become prerequisites for someone having to speak their voice, especially when they disagree with something. And I've had umpteen instances of people, correcting me on things, saying a better way of doing things. But for people to have the comfort levels of doing that, they need to understand themselves and you as a person and know that's respected, right?
And I think it also, to build a little bit upon that, I think if someone lies, let's say someone lies in the interview, right, and they come into your organization, they have to live that lie, right? It's like having two girlfriends on the side of your marriage. Like, you have to live that lie, and you have to remember.
Very specific, right?
Not too specific. Don't go there.
I'm just saying.
I wonder why you chose that metaphor. But anyway, go.
I couldn't come up with anything.
He said two. He could have said one. Could have said 40.
I could have said one. You're right. I could have said one. I said two.
I'm just
side
piece.
I don't even have time for what I have. This is crazy. Where was I thinking here? Oh, so
I have no idea.
You have to live that lie, and that makes people unhappy. Most normal people, right? And then that's just going to translate into the environment. I have a question about. So I'm listening to all the ups and downs you've had, right? You're getting to where you're at now, which you've grown. You've got you're doing well. You've had some success, but what gets you excited today? Not as you were coming up, but what gets you excited today when you get up in the morning? Not necessarily about your current company and what you're doing, but about the journey.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think making something happen each day, right? It could be a small thing. It could be an activity that you wanted to do, right? Like for example, last month we started working with a bunch of Twitch streamers who started using our product.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
And each of those was a different conversation. Right? One is a gifted singer in Brazil. And for me, that one, hour when we're researching her stream and then speak with her and then see her using our product in her stream, all of those give me joy, right? And then after that, I'm talking to somebody else who is teaching the Pomodoro technique in Italy. And she's telling me her story about why she's using our product. And each of these conversations, the stories behind them, right? I mean, it's easy to look at it as a data. If you sign up for our product, you will still get a link to a calendar that encourages you to get on my calendar as well at times. Right. And I speak to at least a couple of users every week, and the stories that people say, right? So it's almost like waking up and saying, what stories am I going to read at work today? And that could be stories with users, that could be things you're learning internally, or you go down a rabbit hole of doing something totally new that you haven't done before. But there's just so many possibilities in all of these conversations. I enjoy these conversations. Each time I get off a conversation with anyone, including this one, for example, right? I'm energized. It feels good, right? So I knew we were doing this talk today, and that excited me today. For example, the possibility of, I'm going to meet. I looked you folks up. I know you guys are cool, and I said it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good conversation, and that is a part of what makes you excited about today, the 1st of March, Friday. And something similar is going to happen, hopefully, over the weekend and next week and everything. And I think you have a fair amount of the ability to shape those things in a startup and in a young company, which is beautiful, right? I don't have to go through 20 groups of permissions to get an approval to come on the podcast here and say what I want.
Right.
And I think that some of those things are things we take for granted, but are actually beautiful.
Well, it's the joy in the now, and not having the same day twice, I think is intoxicating, and it's also liberating for the folks that are around you. The employees get to watch you, and they get to see you take joy from something as simple as having a conversation with somebody about their story. I can see that being extremely powerful for people to then say, it's okay to just have conversations. Like that's a part of the bit. I love it. Right, Ryan, I don't have any other questions. This has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, this has been really good, Lux. Thank you so much for coming 100%. On. Your journey was super interesting. I think we're going to have to go on a journey to see if we can find someone who has a company that lasts less than 28 days.
I'm sure it exists. I'm sure it exists.
Find one, and we'll let you know.
Usually out of business schools. There's some that. Yeah.
But for real, this has been a fantastic conversation. And if you're still listening, if you're still watching, please connect with us. Subscribe where you get all your podcasts. Love us everywhere you can. Connect with us if you see us out there at an event, podcasting, walking around. Come say hi to us. We would love to say hello.